For today's episode of Guest Practices, we talk about speed, creating a speed-savvy culture and ecosystem that fuels success. The fast pace of how we live and work today is driving business into incremental and radical change. Running a business, for example, during the pandemic has accelerated the need to transform and fast-track the must-dos already on the agenda. For example, digital transformation, workforce transformation, and more. How organizations and leaders do that while bringing people along with them needs to be unlocked and understood. At the heart of this, executive leaders need to unlearn and relearn the skills most suited for today's modern, fast-paced, digitally fueled workplace. What may have worked in the past certainly won't work for the present and the future workforce, and speed is trumping size as the competitive advantage play. So who better to welcome than Dr. Raman Attri, leader, learning professional, trainer, coach, and author of the book Speed Matters. Dr. Raman is the king of speed and helps us understand what that means in the business context of today, why it's so important, what to do to speed up in the right way, and how to go about it. Sometimes we even have to slow down to go faster, and in the fast-paced modern workplace, that's a hard thing to master. Let's find out more. Hello and welcome to this episode of Guest Practices. I am joined by Dr. Raman Attri. And for this episode, I really do feel the need for speed. I don't have Goose and Maverick here, but I have the next best thing, the king of speed himself. Dr. Raman, perhaps you can just introduce yourself and what I'm talking about here.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I'm really glad to be at your show. It's my pleasure. Well, my name is Raman, as you just stated. By training, I'm an engineer, but now I specialize in speed in learning and performance. So fundamentally, I'm a training thought leader at a Fortune 500 company. I work on designing learning programs that help workforce to learn complex skills at an accelerated rate. And at the same time, I also wear another hat, which is performance scientist. I run a research firm called ExpertX, where I provide executives and business owners with science-based proven strategies to speed up their performance. So currently I'm based in Singapore. So that's pretty much about me.
And tell us a little bit about your book as well.
Oh, all right. So my latest book is called Speed Matters. So I wrote this book specifically for top leaders, CEOs, and executives to educate them about how they can go speed savvy for the times to come. In this book, I have integrated both research, insight, and business wisdom together. This book was actually the result of 70 best-in-class organizations I approached. I interviewed 85 best-in-class business leaders from 7 countries. These leaders were those who value speed in a lot of different sense as a competitive weapon. We have seen, how many organizations have struggled lately during COVID-19. But at the same time, there were other set of organizations as well who have accelerated the need to transform and fast track. But I think after pandemic is over, several organizations will struggle to recover their lost market share, revenue, and customer. So they need to master the speed. So that thought process is what I had covered in this book, hoping to make that speed as a priority for those who want to stay relevant in the times to come. So in this book, I talk about how to prioritize time to proficiency metrics in their teams and how leaders can bring that language of speed in their organization. So that's pretty much, that book about Speed Matters.
Excellent. And maybe we can get into a bit more detail there, please, because I find it fascinating. I talk about speed myself because I'm at the head of working around digital transformation, workforce transformation, and speed itself. So perhaps you can go even deeper into explaining what is the nature of speed that we're talking about here in your view, and why is it so important now for organizations as competitive advantage as we emerge from the pandemic, as we emerge from years of transformation and look at the modern workplace?
That's right. All right. Let me first qualify what type of speed we are talking about. I think a large majority of leaders see the speed as getting there first. That's their version of speed. So what they do when they have that kind of impression, they press hard for deliverable. They set aggressive timelines. They insist faster task execution or project execution. For a moment, I think it does give an impression of moving fast. There can be some immediate wins, but it does not lead to a long-term competitive advantage because employees don't have enough time to learn and master. Their learning is half cooked. The speed I'm talking about here is not getting there first, but getting it right the first time in the shortest possible time. So let me give you an example, to elaborate this. You have seen the checkout clerks in a large stores like Walmart or Target, right? So when you note what you notice there is while they are talking to you, you don't even realize when they have completed that transaction. At times, they don't even bother to look at that barcode. They're so proficient. They make no error. But the transaction per customer is so fast. Still, they don't come across in any kind of mad rush, and you walk out pretty pleased as a customer with that kind of experience. So we are talking about bringing our employees, managers, leaders to that level of consistent, reliable, repeatable mastery, where they can deliver the outcomes first time right. So what we get is out of this better customer satisfaction, faster resolution of problem, a perfect sales pitch. So once we speed up the journey to reach there, the speed of task execution comes out of it automatically without any effort. So that's the kind of speed we are talking about. So I hope I answered your first part of your question, right?
You certainly did. And I think there's something great that's come out of there. That speed to repeatable mastery is a beautiful way of talking about it here. And I guess when you're talking then around what you said before, learning, performance, employee development, many organizations actually struggle with this kind of speed that you're talking about. There are sort of two schools of thought, aren't there? It's like, we just need to be first, we just need to get there, and an 80% solution is okay. And then there are those that said, actually, we need to refine this particular area because we need mastery in this area. So why do some organizations struggle with this type of speed in all of these areas we've been talking about, particularly when you're thinking about transformation, innovation, employee development, and around the mindset and the culture of the organization itself?
Yeah. That's a beautiful question, Jeremy. I think before that, when we reach to that level, I think it's very important to really understand as a leadership team that speed, does it really have the competitive advantage? I mean, is it relevant today? I mean, we're talking about a different kind of speed now. We are not talking about pushing our employees, with a aggressive set of timelines. So I think that this speed has become much more relevant now in pandemic. My own experience is that our employees struggle to learn new skills as simple as operating this Zoom software, right? So I think you remember that in the beginning phases, people struggle to even master Zoom. Because people were not prepared, because they have been groomed to complete the task fast, not to learn the new skill faster to the level of proficiency. I'm going to share one research. Deloitte did a research in 2017. Deloitte is a major consulting firm, as you know. So they did a study of about 10,000 CEOs and executives. So what they found out is that the shelf life of any skill back then in 2017 was 12 months to 18 months. But in pandemic, what has happened is that figure has gone down to 3 months or even less. That means employees need to learn new skills every 3 months. But then the question comes is, how long does it take to learn new skills to mastery? Well, in my research, it showed that time is pretty long. For example, a semicon and communication equipment engineer, to reach to that level of mastery, he would take 2 years to 3 years. So now we got a catch 22 situation. Shelf life is too short, but the time to mastery is too long. There is another data piece I would like to share here. The time to market was about 3 years, about a decade ago, I think. But now it is roughly 3 months for new products and services. Customers are becoming impatient to get new products in their hands sooner. So while we are saying that every 3 months your employees need to learn new skills to innovate and be relevant and competitive in the market. So it's pretty tough situation that, most of the organizations have lost substantial market share. They will be highly pressed to recover their position. And only those will survive or stay ahead who can build their employees' mastery well before the pandemic is over. And that's why I think speed of employee skill development is the only way to stay ahead in the market. And I think with that stage, I will answer your next question, which is that why the organization do not get it right. Was that your question, Jeremy, right?
Yes, it is. Yep.
All right. Okay. So there are a few things that comes in my mind. I'm going to relate it back to my response. Um, I'm sure that in the COVID-19, you have heard from everyone using this term called accelerate. Let's accelerate digital transformation, or let's accelerate performance, accelerate learning, accelerate process improvement, so many things, right? But my perspective is that we don't accelerate unless we measure our current speed quantifiably, and unless we cut out substantial time out from the journey from point A to point B. It's very ironic that every single technology out there gives us timestamp. Still, we lack a good mechanism or instrumentation to measure speed. Not many leaders have paid attention to this lack simply because their focus is task execution. So that's number one that comes in my mind, that why they don't get it right. There is another reason why they don't get right. That's, I think, educated in our education. That's rooted there. Our MBA education, executive program, HR strategies, everything is based on one belief. And that belief is that workforce ability, skills, competencies, talent are the key to stay ahead in the market. That was probably true a decade ago, I would say. But now, organization across the board hire same talent pool, right? So the abilities are no longer differentiation. So if we take that equation a little further, more or less every organization out there, they are cash rich. They have resources. They have work on similar kind of technologies. And then they sell to the customer in the same geographies, same markets. So what I see is, as a researcher, skills and abilities are no longer differentiators. But the problem is that our top executives still continue to live in the era where skills were the currency. But as Salesforce CEO once said, speed is the new currency in business. I just remember that I delivered a keynote at HR.com's largest conference. There was about 600 HR leaders. So one of the topmost at CHRO said, "Time to proficiency makes so much sense to me, but I'm wondering why I never thought about this before." That's pretty profound, right? There is an education gap. So when we take skills and ability as our market differentiation, then whenever there is a problem like you lost a customer or contract, your logical response will be to give employees more training. I'm a training leader at a Fortune 500 corporation. I manage a world's best training center. I can say confidently that training departments are ill equipped to develop workforce for speed. Giving more skill will take only little bit far, but the real strategy should be to give skills at a faster rate. So that was another thing why organization didn't get it right, because there's the education gap. But then I'm also going to bring in the point which I brought in the beginning of the conversation. That's about mad rush. Deloitte study, which I was talking about, they mentioned that worldwide executive back then said speed and agility were far more important to them than efficiency. But most organizations still don't learn. They continue to focus on efficiency rather than speed. They keep going for the mad rush to accomplish things quickly. That was okay, I think, in Industry 3.0. But in Industry 4.0, the efficiency is already the primary goal of automation and technologies like AI. If machines can do it faster than humans more efficiently, why keep chasing the wrong kind of speed? So let's rather focus on building those skills of employees at a faster rate, which are the only thing which human can do better than machines. So those were my observations in regards to why our organization did not get the speed right. I hope I answered your question, Jeremy.
Yes, so much rich detail there, and I've made copious notes here, which I've learned from as well. And that first thing that you said about that mastering Zoom and about what we're doing is quite right, because halfway through that as well, I even forgot about the mute button again. It's only been 18 months that I've been using it every day. It's crazy, isn't it? But yes, I love this, what you're talking about, this shelf life. the shelf life of how we used to see skills, and the fact that we need to rapidly upskill and adapt to certain things that are happening, even the uncertain and unpredictable. And you can't teach that, so it's dealing with speed in a way, because I think there's a tension also here, because there is the adage, fail fast, fail early, fail forward, which is in essence a speed driven activity, but you have to learn from it. So that other catch 22 is speed to proficiency. Maybe 2 years, as you said, or it may be sort of 1 year, but you've just got to go for it, and you've got to learn rapidly from it as much as anything else. So I can see why you're putting learning and performance together here as well. And the fact that then, that we're not even measuring speed, and it's not really been in our vernacular in organizations until maybe recently for some, but not enough, is really interesting. Speed is the new currency, not necessarily skills. I really like that, particularly if we think about the blended workforce, with the opportunity to hire not just permanent but independent workers at a certain skills level or proven level. Originally, it starts to think in a skills way. So it got me thinking when you were talking there. And I know we've been connected for many years. I know you do a lot of research in this. So from the research that you've done, and particularly some of the examples in your book, what are some of the tips and traps that that you can share with modern leaders and organizations when adopting a speed savvy culture?
Sure, Jeremy. Yeah, you made good comments on my response. So yeah, those are profound. Thank you so much for observing those details behind my statements. Appreciate it. So let me divide the answer to this question into two parts. So I think first we can talk about traps, and then we'll touch upon some key tips. Okay. So there are, I think, major three traps which I noticed in my research as well as in my experience. At surface, those seems like enabling speed. That's why I call them as traps. But in reality, what I found is they actually pull down the pace. Number one is training. This might be very interesting. In fact, in my research, I had several sales functions head who participated. One financial service call center. They used to hire cost agents to answer the questions of customers, and they would help them buy the right product over the phone. All right. So logically, they made these agents try to remember everything, every single detail about every single product they had. So it resulted in massive 11 weeks of training, very intensive, morning till evening training, instructor-led with a lot of paper, pen type of assessment to check memories on the product features. What they were doing is they were trying to stuff the training program with just-in-case content that has no relevance. And they hardly spent any time on how to interact with the customer because they were busy so much with the content. And after 11 weeks, these agents would need another 3 months to reach the stage where they know exactly where the answer to those questions are and to become, completely fluid in their performance. That's the danger of poorly designed training. It actually slows down the speed because in most organizations, they have simply copied the training from academic templates. Too content focused, topic wise, classroom style, more memory focused training. Training is the solution to the faster readiness. That's a misconception, and that's the trap. That's the number one that comes in my mind. The second trap is about the behaviors of the managers. The global leaders I interviewed, they said they had to fix the manager first before they could bring speed enabling culture in their teams. In most job roles, managers can't even define or quantify the proficiency they expect from their employees. And then they don't even know how to measure speed. If we don't measure speed, how do we know how slow or fast we are going? That was the trap number two. In most organizations, managers are overly hands-off because they got tons of work of making slides, making big Excel sheet, attending meetings. They don't have time to interact with their employees, which should be their number one priority, by the way. So they leave their employees at the mercy of training departments, expecting trainers to be some sort of magicians who would produce a fully productive employee within few weeks. That's where employees don't feel supported. and that further slows them down. I presented this key idea in one of the large conferences. And, I said if everything is equal, like resources, technology, cash, peers, then managers are either the biggest enablers or they are the biggest disablers for the speed. I know most managers wouldn't want to be called as disablers or decelerators of speed, but that's the hardcore reality. That's the big trap we have. We believe that managers do support employees, but in reality, they are busy with lots of other things that they don't have time to pay attention to their employees. So that was trap number two. There's third trap also, and that one also going to come as a little bit of surprise, what I call technologies. I have spoken to several conferences, and one feedback I have unanimously gotten that leaders don't even know which technology indeed would help speed or it will help speed up time to proficiency. Most of the technologies are meant for speed of work, not for speed of employee development. So that lack of focus is another trap. The problem is that most technologies are implemented for process or work or task efficiency. Those are either to track people's work or to reduce manual work. And there is another factor, I think. People who buy the technology, they are not the one responsible for employee development or speed, what we are talking about here. So you see, there is a disconnect. So I think those were the kind of traps. So I think I said enough about traps. I would like to take a pause here. If you have any follow-up question about the traps before I move, before I open up my Pandora box of tips I have for leaders, how they can get out of those traps.
Well, I think what I would say is it just resonates hugely with me. It's all about putting the word almost appropriate in front of everything that you said. Appropriate training, appropriate measurements, appropriate management actions, and appropriate ways of doing business are what is going to make this go forward in a more positive way. If you don't have any of those, they get in the way. And I totally get what you're talking about management. The way that management have become super administrators, problem solvers, away from where they perhaps could add way more value around support, growth mindset, coaching culture, all of those things are all inhibitors to what you're talking about speed here. And we saw that at the beginning of the pandemic. Many of the organizations that weren't ready failed because they over-diarized, they filled their people's calendars with meetings because they were trying to find a purpose for themselves. They didn't know was the way forward. So maybe we need some of your tips now then, Dr. Raman.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. Jeremy, I am in a process of writing a book. Its title is Get There Faster. So where I'll talk about 24 strategies to get the speed right. But for your audience, I'm going to give this sneak peek about 3 tips. I think that will be more relevant here. So my first tip for executive is to rely less on training. I think I'm repeating the same argument again. And I'll give you one example. During the pandemic, some of the semicon, industrial machinery repair or elevator repair, even equipment repair organization, they use some of the innovative technologies like they use augmented smart glasses for brand new technicians because during pandemic, they didn't have a way to send them for any training. These guys' training center was somewhere else. The travel was needed, a lot of restrictions were there. So they used these smart glasses, sent them to the real job on day one. These smart glasses come with an augmented display where you can access procedure, documentation, videos without actually needing to click anywhere. So then you need to, you have the ability to connect with the network of coaches who can see what you see as a technician. So see, it's a far better model than going through a training class. It provides information, procedure, knowledge, coaching, learning, peer support, instruction, all at one place. So if you have that kind of resources in front of you, and if you have a qualifying degree, a reasonable education to understand this different pieces, who needs training? If you can create that kind of tech ecosystem, the result in some of these organizations they got is roughly 50% reduction in time to proficiency. So imagine they now mastering, the technicians are becoming master in 50% lesser time compared to the traditional model of sending them to a training center. So, as I said before, training is a trap. So, don't rely on training to build the proficiency of your employees. Training does only one thing: it delivers knowledge and skills, and probably it gives you initial readiness. But my point is that training does not build realistic performance, what's required to demonstrate proficiency. If training is not giving your employees realistic performance and not adding to the speed of time to proficiency, then why do it? To better replace it with performance support technologies, knowledge repository, on the demand mobile learning, and things like that. Because when people fetch the information at the point of need, when they pull and learn the things they need, when they need, as much as they need, guess what? Their learning is much faster and they produce outcomes much faster. So that was my tip number one. Don't rely on training too much. I know that as a training leader, I shouldn't be saying it. But in my research, that was the number one thing that as a leader, we shouldn't really rely on training because training is not a complete solution. So that's kind of number one. The second tip for leaders I have is that focus on the entire journey, not events or activities. Uh, let's take an example. When you go to a burger joint or a sandwich restaurant, you order a nice burger. When it comes, you don't care how the guys executed each step to make it. You don't care how precisely this guy cut the lettuce or how beautifully he placed the tomato on top of patty. Those are activities. So being good at those activities has no relevance to your experience of getting a delicious burger. Same way, focus on the total journey of your employees, your managers, and your leaders, and focus on their ability to produce outcomes proficiently and provide them with the intervention, support, coaching, assessment to achieve those outcomes, not the mastery of steps for the outcome. Assess them for those outcomes that matter. Don't assess them for the steps, tasks, or events. Uh, One organization in my research, they focused on teaching engineers every single skill they might need. So result was the engineers took 53 weeks to become masters. It's a horribly long time, right? But then later on, they realized that over half of the skills they were teaching them, those events were not even happening for the last 5 years. So no point focusing on those activities which are they are not going to use. So when you focus on outcome and on the total journey to reach the outcome, they basically slash 26 week out of the equation. So imagine that we're talking about big corporation, millions of dollars of saving here. So I hope this example can drive home the point I was trying to make. So that was my second tip. So my last tip, third tip is to create a speed enabling ecosystem. I think I need to qualify the speed enabling ecosystem, what it is, but I'll do it with an example. So there was one software company in the US. They hired 1,800 offshore software engineers in Thailand. But they're faced with a challenge that their European and American software engineers, they didn't support these 1,800 new hires because there was a risk of losing their jobs. So they resorted not to help them. So the training and all the things, they put it in plan, that didn't work. So ultimately, the company had only one choice. They had to put a speed enabling ecosystem to shorten time to proficiency of these the new hires. And when they did it, they saved 45,000 hours worth of time. So if you see, your employees don't work in isolation, they work with each other. So when there is a problem, they seek help from immediate peers. They need coaching sometime. They need very targeted training for specific skills. Sometimes they simply need to seek advice and reuse what's already exists in the company. Sometimes they need automation by some technology. So while they are going through all this, they need to be working on assignment and projects that matter to produce outcome, not simply do this task or that task. That means their manager need to provide them project assignment and support in a very targeted fashion by focusing on the complete journey. So all this needs to happen within a job environment where I observed that there were six elements working in harmony with each other. Those six elements are number one, peers, coaches, managers, technologies, subject matter experts, and the job environment itself. Now, some may argue that these elements are everywhere in every single job. What's big deal? I think presence of these elements alone does not ensure speed. When your frontline managers tell their direct report something like this, go sit with Joe, and if Joe is not available, then go and sit with Jim. And then he leaves it pretty much to Jim and Joe. That's not going to speed up anything. That's actually going to slow them down, right? So designing a speed enabling ecosystem is all about leadership and strategy. It's about entire journey to reach consistent outcomes in a faster time. So all those six elements which I mentioned need to be designed in terms of how they will support employees throughout the journey. What needs to happen is once you have designed the complete hiring to proficiency journey, you need to strategically design few things where you will involve coaches, not one, but several of them. Most of the time, managers or leader, they get it wrong is they only assign one coach or two coaches. But in fact, in an organization, you're going to need network of coaches. You're going to need to think of where will you hold them accountable? Where will you involve technology and automation? Where will you set up social learning forums for them? Where will you bring experts or star performers? Where will you assign the realistic projects? So all those things need to come in form of an ecosystem that surrounds the employees. So I hope I gave enough depth to my account of tips and traps, Jeremy.
Most certainly have, and it's fascinating, Dr. Raman. I firmly believe that word appropriate comes up again, the appropriate training or support that needs to be there. And something that resonated in that learning approach is something that I'm championing a lot of at the moment, which is the consumerization of learning, which is exactly as you describe it. It's learning at the point of need, which is pulled from the individual, from a resource, which would be part of that ecosystem, actually, that you talk about there, so that they can get what they need in terms of the knowledge. They can be supported by the manager in terms of the skill or the speed that they need to go at. And I think that would help. And that makes total sense when you said the next thing, which is the focus on the overall journey rather than the individual steps. Because what is ultimately the outcome? And therefore, how can we compress the bits in between there to move it forward? Fascinating. And you're right, in order to do that, you have to have not a series of systems and platforms. You need an ecosystem. You need something that glues everything together with the appropriate digital tools, with the human touch, which drive the ultimate in collaboration and co-support around this. So I think it's absolutely makes total sense to me and fascinating. So thank you very much for the response on that. And we've got time for one more question around this as well, because it makes so much sense when we're talking about speed to proficiency, speed to performance, speed to learning, all of these kind of things. So what are the benefits for leaders and organizations getting it right? And what are the risks for those too slow?
Yeah, all right. I think you said it right. It makes common sense. It's like it makes so much sense to everyone that let's speed up the path to proficiency. That should be the first thing every training intervention or every HR process should target at. So let me first elaborate on the risks of going slow. And then I think we'll turn it around what benefits some organizations have garnered by just focusing on speed to proficiency. So I'm going to take two examples, one for the risk, one for the I think probably is the same example. So one large American financial institution, they had a call center agents. Their job was to sell financial products to clients over phone. So they found that the time to proficiency of their agent was 1 year. That seems reasonable because financial institutions have a range of financial products to sell. They have regulatory component, compliance also. They need to pass certain lengthy mandatory certification. So it takes time, to master all those. The problem is that the employee is now waiting for 1 year before they hear from their managers that, okay, you know what? Now you're ready to contribute productively to the company. That simply delays giving the sense of achievement to the individual. The result is, despite all those glorified engagement surveys and action, half of the agent won't even wait till the end of the year. They will leave. So they imagine 50% turnaround. Now you hire new set of people, then cycle them back again. And executives will keep hammering HR and recruitment about retention. They keep hammering direct manager about engagement score. Problem never goes away. But then again, during the first year, if they stay, if they don't leave, there is an investment in training, coaching, supervision while they're still on that journey. So they are losing millions of dollars of sales opportunities. So there was a risk of losing customer satisfaction if they decide to put them onto the real call. And guess what happens if they make errors? We're talking about banking sector. It could invite legal issues, right? The customer don't wait. They would go somewhere else. So it's a lost revenue. So it's a two-edged sword, I say. So at an individual level, 1 year does not sound too bad, I think. But here's the problem. They had 10,000 agents. Now, if you multiply it, it becomes 10,000 person years problem. It's so worrisome, right? But the CEOs are never told the problem that way. They are too busy measuring the activities like time to sale, call duration, number of cold call made, customer call rating score, and things like that. So now, if you don't do anything about such a big problem, you risk on every front, right? It has an impact on non-financial factors like retention, engagement, customer satisfaction, customer loyalty. And then it also impacts the financial factors like liability issues, training investment, lost opportunity, and most of all, losing the market share. I hope I painted the picture well as far as the risks are concerned. I'll pause for a while before I elaborate the benefits.
Yeah, I've been writing furiously as you've been talking about there because I kind of love that point. The point to make it to organizations is, 1 year sounds reasonable for one employees, but if you've got you talked about those 1,800 new technicians in Thailand in your last example.
Yeah.
Well, that's 1,800 years to get to proficiency
Exactly.
as a multiplier. And when you say it like that, it's like, right, I get it now. We need to do something that compresses this overall journey and brings these people through. And as a co-supporting ecosystem with management who are repurposed to really drive that forward. Totally get it. So yes, absolutely. So what are the benefits? If we get it right.
Okay. All right. I'll pick the example of another sales role because I think a sales role is very easy to understand across the board. In my research, I had this one organization. They were producing this high-tech communication equipment like enterprise infrastructure, servers, those kind of things. So they had highly qualified sales engineers. So part of their job is to negotiate with the upper management in the client organization, decision makers, because these were very expensive, multi-million dollar capital hardware we're talking about. So fundamentally, they needed far higher level of sales skills, I would say. So it also means that they would spend quite a time understanding technological products, ecosystem, connections, building relationship, company policy, and things like that. On an average, each engineer was taking 24 weeks to become proficient at that level. So imagine if that happened during COVID, when clients were demanding faster upgrade of their infrastructure. This company would have been out of business simply because to scale it up, they had to wait 24 weeks for a new sales engineer to come up to speed. And that's a drastically long time if we take in context of COVID-19, what happened. So this organization, they instituted what I call the speed enabling ecosystem. And by doing that, what they did is they shortened the time to proficiency to 12 weeks for new hires and 6 weeks for their seasoned sales engineers, those who were serving some other product earlier. The result is this pretty interesting result we got is that they achieved, I think, about $2 million additional net profit per seller over and above what they used to get. And then there were a very interesting outcome as well. Compared to the population, which was achieving the quota each quarter earlier, now they had about 25% more engineers achieving that quota every quarter. So now the amount of population that was delivering result is already raised by 25%. So imagine, once that happens, it will wipe clean the competition by a large margin, unless competitors are equally smart to invest in their speed to proficiency of their engineers. So, but this company, they will get the head start, far, far ahead of the game. Eventually, every competitor will wake up, but it will be a long distance for them to cover. They will need even much. They will even need much faster speed compared to this company to catch up, right? So that's why I think speed of employee proficiency is such a devastating competitive weapon. So guess who's going to stay ahead? The chain of benefit company ripe are many, like higher engagement because people are producing result. They feel sense of achievement. They get the higher retention, higher productivity, more revenue, better customer satisfaction, more market share, and far more superior skills of the staff. Seriously competitive talent, we can say. So that's how I kind of saw the benefit. And this was just one example. And I had 70 organizations in my research. So imagine the range of benefits we can get. I hope that reply did the justice on both sides of the risk of slow progress as well as the benefit of going for speed and proficiency.
It most certainly did, Dr. Raman, and it's a good point for me to say that it's a really strong recommendation. Having seen what you've done and the research that's gone into your book to recommend to others to get that book, have a read, and very easy to dip in and look at some of these different examples as you wish. But I love what you talked about there, the potential return, that return per head. It's an exponential gain, which is there. As much as we were talking about an exponential risk, this is what we're talking about with speed. So leaders and managers getting on board with speed and asking the questions about how do we create a speed enabling culture? How do we support it? What are the things that we need to take out of our current system? How do we need to reinvent the way we do things to really drive this? I think some fantastic glimpses and insights that you've provided for us. So in order to go further, because we've come to the end of our session here, but in order to go further, I know first of all, that you've got something for people to download, which is great, which I'll let you explain. And then I'd like you to say, where can people get hold of you to talk about this more and get hold of your book?
All right. So thank you so much, Jeremy. It's my pleasure that I was able to answer some of your thought-provoking questions. Thank you so much. I think now I will be able to share one resource with your audience where they can get 6 practices, how they can bring speed in their settings. So those 6 practices are what I saw universally across the organization in different industries applicable. And once they understand that what 6 practices that they need to implement, they will be ready for bringing speed as a culture. It's going to take time. It's a long shot. It takes several months of slow change, I would say. But having that education in regards to what really works when we are talking about speed enabling culture, I think it's going to help your organization. I think at the end of this session, we can provide them a link where they can download that report. So that will be one resource for people to read. My book is available, in fact, almost all the marketplaces. I think mostly people these days buy on Amazon, but otherwise available on most booksellers. And they just need to kind of search Speed Matters by Dr. Raman. And that, I think, is the only book available there in Amazon. So that will be, and I would recommend that it comes in a lot of different editions. There is a hardbound library edition with a nice jacket that might be worth keeping on your shelf for a long time.
And of course, what we've also done is we've also put here on the screen for you all watching at the moment, the links. So those of you listening, if you go onto YouTube, you can also watch this and you can see the links there and you can download this series. That'd be fantastic to get those 6 tips as next step. So look, I'd love to thank you so much, Dr. Raman, for joining me today. It's been fascinating and something that we don't talk about enough. So great to kick off that conversation. And I hope people get in touch with you to find out more, because for me, it's been a real learning knowing you and reading about the kind of research that you're doing behind this. And I see the total sense. Thank you so much for joining me.
Jeremy, it was my pleasure on being on your show. Thank you so much for inviting. I really appreciate it.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining our Guest Practices videocast. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel through the link below, or check out our website to access more in our current series of expert interviews.